What's up, friends? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into Pack-A-Day Live. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Excited to be here. Excited to be talking Packers with you. It's going to be a very interesting week. Obviously, we've been breaking down Packers Jacksonville all week long. We've got Packers Lions coming up this weekend. Really interesting game, specifically with the injuries that are sort of at hand right now. 7 players, I think it was, that were not practicing in some capacity for Green Bay. It wasn't exactly like it was a nondescript list of players either. You've got Jair Alexander, Josh Jacobs, Elton Jenkins, Jordan Love, Josh Myers, Rasheed Walker, Evan Williams. Every single one of them starters, not practicing in some capacity. So not exactly what you want to see going into your biggest game of the year. But alas, here we are. Jared Goff rolled an ankle. It sounds like he was not practicing today. So that will be worth monitoring as well. But just either way, Packers, Lions, this is going to be what should be really a heavyweight fight in the division, I think, for a while, like for the next handful of seasons at least, if not even beyond that. So excited to see how this one plays out. They had a really fun, I would say series last year, right? And neither game particularly close. Detroit easily got the best of Green Bay in Green Bay last year. Green Bay got the best of Detroit. And I'm excited for these 2 games this year to see how they match up with one another. And listen, Detroit might be the better team on paper right now, but one, we know that the game's not played on paper, and 2, Green Bay's going to have a lot to say about that. It's not like they're lacking for talent in any real way. They can go out and win this game anytime these 2 match up, as they did last year, as they were still a young up-and-coming team, which they still are this year to some extent, but even more so last year. They went into Detroit and beat them on Thanksgiving in their house. So there's definitely a game that Green Bay can win, but it's going to not obviously be easy, and Detroit's going to come in like the wrecking ball that they've been, kind of just going through the league. And now Green Bay's going to have to figure out a way to stop them. So like I said, I'm super excited for it. Per usual, we'll get to all of your, at least as many questions as I possibly can. So start getting those questions in. Looks like we've got some good ones already. Super chats will go to the top of the list. And then, of course, we will get to as many member chats and just all the chats that we can get to over the next probably hour. I'll probably be here till the top of the hour. So let's get after it. Ben, you're considering not watching tomorrow night. I'm assuming you mean Thursday Night Football? I don't know why. Like, it should be mostly entertaining. I think the Jets, at least last I checked, were actually favorites in that game, if I remember correctly. Let's take a look at it. Jets are 2-point favorites, which is absurd because they have been brutally terrible. Like, they have been absolutely awful so far this year. So the fact that they're 2-point favorites against Houston, I know they just lost Stephon Diggs and whatnot, but that's still very surprising. And like, listen, look, we get a handful of games, or however many long, how much longer this season lasts for the Jets, of Devontae and Aaron playing together. And we might be legitimately watching Aaron's last season in the NFL. I don't know that that's the case. He could be back next year. Maybe he's with a different team. No idea. But there's at least the possibility that this could be Aaron's last year in the NFL. So I'm certainly going to enjoy watching it. And again, I've said all season long, like, if you are an Aaron Rodgers supporter, right? Like, you get to go out and watch him play football. That's awesome. If you're an Aaron Rodgers hater, well, then you get to go out and cheer for the Texans and watch him try to fail. And if you are indifferent or just like respectful, or, just want to see him, how he does, whatever the case, well, then you get to watch it in real time. And I think either way, like, it's always entertaining and interesting when Aaron and the Jets are on the field right now, whether you're there for the train wreck or to see if they can make some sort of spectacular thing happen the remainder of this year. Either way, it's still some level of interesting, at least. I know injury withstanding, and it's different, but I'd love to see Love make a team pay with his legs, because he certainly can run when healthy, just doesn't. I'll put this a couple different ways, Ben. I think he can, but I think it's more of like early Aaron Rodgers-esque. Like, we're not talking about like a premier athlete with his legs, right? But like one that can definitely hurt you with him if he is given the opportunity. So I think like early Aaron Rodgers type mobility is very similar for Love. But what I'll say is, in an ideal world, you have all the playmakers in the world around him. In an ideal world, you're getting the ball out of Jordan's hands and into the hands of those playmakers as quickly as possible, so that they can do the heavy lifting, that you're not subjecting Jordan to any hits or, just any tweaks, anything down the field, and subjecting yourself to those opportunities. So I certainly think that he is more than capable. I certainly think he will from time to time when he's healthy, but in the ideal world, he's getting the ball out of his hands and in the hands of Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Josh Jacobs, Tucker Kraft. And if you had to choose, would you rather have the ball in the hands of your playmakers or in the hands of Jordan Love down the field? Give me the playmakers every single time. We're already talking about after every game of like, oh, I wish Wicks or Watson or whomever could have got the ball more. Well, anytime that Jordan keeps it and runs it with his legs, it's one less touch for those guys too. So I'm not saying like it's not like you shouldn't do it. You just have to make the right decision. But in an ideal world, I don't really need to see him running. I want the ball in the hands of the playmakers as much as possible. All right. And I'd love to see Jacobs, Wilson, Brooks run the ball down Detroit's throat and give them a little bit of their own medicine. That we can be 100% in agreement with, Ben, and very much looking to see what that run game can do. And whether it's Love or Willis, you definitely want to see this running game get going early so Green Bay can stay balanced throughout the course of the game. Matthew, got to remember, he learned under Rodgers, just not his style really, but Love can run when he needs to. I mean, Rodgers was certainly not allergic to running early in his career. Like, he did a decent amount of it, right? So again, I think those opportunities will come, and I think he'll take them when they're there. But again, if given the choice, I'd much rather have it in the hands of the guys that are paid to have the ball in their hands, at least down the field. Andy, I was wondering if you watched any Darnell Savage while grading the Packers, and if you did, how did you think he played? I didn't watch him anything in particular. No, I didn't grade him. I didn't think he stood out in any real way. I didn't think Green Bay really went after him as much as maybe I was expecting to. When I watched Jacksonville going into this game, I thought he was having a tough season coming into this game, but in this one, it just, without watching him particularly, it felt like he was mostly a nondescript game from him. I can see what PFF graded him as really quick if you would like. Darnell Savage. There's a Dantrell Savage? Weird. All right. Darnell Savage had a 52.7 grade for Jacksonville on 68 snaps, 2 tackles, 1 missed tackle, 1 target in coverage, 1 reception for 18 yards. That's how PFF charted him in this game. So below average, 60 is their average. He's been below average in every game but one where he graded exactly at average at 60. So he's at a 47.2 grade on the season so far for Jacksonville. So not exactly what they were expecting. The Pack Father, the GOAT, shout out to Andy for everything he's doing. MD, I appreciate that a ton, my friend. Thanks for being here. Call me crazy, but I'm not worried about the injury list at all. Just a weird feeling that everyone will be good to go mostly. I think, I talked about this to Aaron Nagler for our episode that'll go for members tomorrow. Just because a player plays doesn't necessarily mean that they're at that same level that they're used to being at, right? I think Josh Myers this past week is a phenomenal example of that. That was clearly Josh Myers' worst game of the season. It wasn't even close. And he's got the wrist injury. And the only thing I can think of is that wrist injury probably affected him, or even just missed practice time last week affected him. So just because they're in there doesn't mean that they're playing at the same level that we're used to. Like, Jordan could be in this game and good to go, but if he doesn't have the mobility or he can't go under center, that's going to change things quite a bit. That's going to limit, what Green Bay can do offensively just based on, what he can or can't do from under center. And then, Jair Alexander is a huge one in this game. Again, even if he does play, what level can he play at? And again, match up with Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's going to be a huge one in this game. So just because they play doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting the same version of them that we're used to. So yes, I would love all those guys to play and be ready to go, but it's worth monitoring not just if they play, but how they play when they're in the game. And again, Josh Myers was not a great example of, or was a great example of exactly that sentiment last week. And again, just had a tough game last week. And I'm happy that it's the afternoon window. Won't miss a snap. Usually miss like the first half, 3/4 on Sundays. Well, glad, Ben, then it's at that time so you can catch the whole thing. Love the way it's set up for Sunday. This is how legends are born. Let's go, J Love. I love the optimism. I think there is too. Like, I actually really think Green Bay has a great chance to win this game, not just because the AI predicted it and the AI has been perfect so far, but I do think so. I think Detroit could have a little bit of a setback game. They've been rolling quite a bit. I could see Green Bay maybe punching them in the mouth early, and let's see how Detroit responds to that. But either way, very, very much excited for this game. And like I said, I think Green Bay's got a real solid chance to pick up a victory here. Green Ranger, you're right there too. I love it. JJ was pretty ticked on the PMS today. It was hysterical. What did I miss, Ben? So, yeah, well, you have to fill me in on that. What is the forecast for Sunday? I heard it's supposed to rain, but I don't know for sure. I haven't looked at it yet. Let's take a look. Give me 1 second. So, Green Bay on Sunday, 55 and rainy, 88% chance of rain. So definitely looks like we could be getting some rain on Sunday. Interesting. All right. Well, that could definitely be a factor in the game as well. What happens with Clifford if he's elevated this Sunday, who will be at the limit of 3 for call-ups? Yeah, somebody asked me that yesterday in the members chat too. I think he probably just stays on the roster, But, and then if you need him in the, later in the season, you're probably just going to have to add him to the active roster. But I will be intrigued to see if maybe Green Bay goes in a different direction and grabs another backup quarterback, just in case they would need to elevate somebody in that situation. I don't know who they would go and get at this point, but I'll be intrigued a little bit to see what does happen there. But my guess is he probably just stays in the practice squad. And then if they need him, they'll just have to add him to the 53. And hopefully they don't need him the rest of the season. That'd be very nice. Starting to see what Matt LaFleur doesn't, why Matt LaFleur doesn't win Coach of the Year. Amari over Nixon, Stokes over Valentine, Quay over Wilson. This man is going to single-handedly lose this week. I think that's very, very harsh, Joe. First of all, Amari over Nixon would definitely be a Rich Bisaccia decision. And I will say, like, the organization as a whole moved on pretty quick from Amari, all things considered. That was year 2 for a 3rd-round pick that they moved on. Should have Keyshawn been in there sooner? Yes. Did they make that mistake? Yes. Do I put that entirely on Matt? No. Like, he's got to delegate those responsibilities too. And that was a Rich Bisaccia decision. So I wouldn't put that totally on Matt. Stokes over Valentine. I will say this. There's probably been no better or no bigger cheerleader for Valentine over Stokes than me. And I'll say this. I don't think it's like this massive gap. Like, there's a difference. And I think Valentine's the better one. Do I think it's some unbelievably egregious error that, like, oh my God, what are we possibly thinking here? Like going with, like, Ladarius Gunter over like Charles Woodson or something? No, it's nothing crazy here, but I do think that, Valentine would be the better decision. I think Quay over Wilson is complex/complicated. And I do think there's probably something to the fact of Quay Walker calling the plays and being the guy in the middle of that defense that they have been counting on in that spot, still playing in a new defense. And he's still very, very talented, but Wilson's played it better. There's no two ways around that. But that is also both of those are Jeff Hafley decisions. Now, Matt could overrule them, of course, and say, no, I want to see Wilson out there. I want to see Valentine out there. But Matt was very adamant today that Quay is going to be the starter at inside linebacker. To some extent, I get it. You're somewhat limited overall with what Eric Wilson can be. Like, he's probably easily could be the last year that he's on the team. But I don't know. For me, if I'm going based on what I've seen on tape so far, I'm definitely going Eric Wilson. I'm definitely going Carrington Valentine. But again, I don't think these are massively egregious decisions that are like, this is what's costing Green Bay or anything like that. I don't see it in that same realm. At least the matchup isn't as frustrating as a few primetime games we've already seen. That is very much the case, Ben. I think the matchup tomorrow is just fine. I think it'll be a solid game. What does game plan look like for Willis, or will LaFleur give him the keys to the normal game plan? First of all, I think Jordan does go in this game. My expectation is that I would guess that he gets a chance to go. But if it is Malik Willis, I think we'll see, go back to the second game. So the Titans game, go back to that. I think you'll see a very similar game plan to that. They'll still be run oriented. I think they'll give him some read option stuff. And I think they'll allow him to throw from time to time and have specific plays that they think he can win with down the field, intermediate, some short stuff. But I think they'll be very creative. And I don't think it'll be a full playbook or anything like that. But I think they're starting to trust him more and more and more, which is a good thing. And now we'll see if Willis can continue to earn that trust and even open up more of the playbook if he does get the start against Detroit. But I think go back to the Tennessee game, you'll see a very similar type of game plan to that. I know Detroit's offensive line is good, so it's going to be a match, but is this one of those games where we tell the D-line to hunt, and if Goff does scramble for some yards, good for him? Yeah, absolutely, there's a piece of that, but I think there's been pieces of that in some of their other matchups with like Matthew Stafford and, obviously Sam Darnold and things like that, and it's not like they've had the opportunity to, it's not like they've completely been game wreckers in that department. So it's not just a mentality. It's not saying go hunt. Like, they've been told to go hunt on numerous occasions, especially like late in this last game. And you still got to find a way to get to the quarterback, which has been something that they've been somewhat allergic to this season, unfortunately. So it's not so much a mentality as it is, you got to win your one-on-one matchups. That's what I'm looking for against this Detroit offensive line. That's very good. But I think Graham Glasgow is probably the one that you're looking to attack. And hopefully Wyatt or Clark can have a big game against him, because they're absolutely going to need it. Rashawn Gary in this pass rush needs to show up for us to have a chance at winning. I think that's probably true, Ben. I mean, there's always chances that you can win in other ways with turnovers or things like that, big explosive plays on offense. But if you want a good, consistent game of football that you win and like deservedly so, I think your pass rush is going to have to at least be better. I don't know that they have to be perfect. I don't know that they have to be the reason that you win, but they're going to have to be better than they've been as of late and show up and get there with some of those 4-man rushes. I do think that is going to be a very huge key to this game. So we're definitely in lockstep there, Ben. Do the Lions have any weak spots the Packers can take advantage of? They do. Graham Glasgow at left guard, I think, is definitely one of those spots. And then I think Terry Arnold at corner, he's a huge propensity to get penalties and grab. So I think you can attack him a little bit. So yeah, I think those are the big ones. I think you can throw in their linebackers. Their linebackers definitely bite on play action. There's a lot of space in the middle of the field that you can attack. So there's weaknesses with Detroit. They're not perfect. I think you really have to do your best job of probably bringing that safety down in the box to make sure they're not running as effectively, but also making sure that you've got your best matchup on Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then I think you have to make, guys like Tim Patrick and Khalif Raymond beat you on offense where they don't have a ton of depth at wide receiver. So I think their wide receiver depth, their left guard, Terry Arnold, and then their linebackers being over aggressive in run defense with some opportunity to get them with play action. I think those are some weaknesses to keep an eye on. Andy, besides the 92 Bengals game, what's another memorable 90s Packers game that you attended live? It's a great question. So I attended 49ers divisional round on the way to the Super Bowl in 96. So that was a very memorable game. I'm trying to think of 90s. Like, I don't know that I have as many 90s memorable ones that I remember quite as well. Just because it's been a while. Oh, I was at the Barry Sanders playoff game when they had negative yards rushing for him. The Bury Sanders, Barry Sanders. I was at that game. That was awesome. Those are probably the big three: the Bengals game in 92, the 49ers divisional round on the way to the Super Bowl, and then the Barry Sanders playoff game where they held him to negative yards until they gave a stat correction during the week that gave him a run instead of a pass on a swing pass. So those were probably three of the more memorable ones that come to the top of my mind. I feel like I'm missing one there was another big one in there somewhere, but either way, I've been at some fun ones. I was at this wasn't in the 90s, but the Seahawks divisional round game where, you've got the Favre snowball game and everything like that, him in the snow and everything, where you go down, I think 14-0 early and come back and just crush the Seahawks after that. That was an awesome game to be at. I've been at some bad ones too. I was at the Michael Vick playoff game where he just ran all over, and Hardy Nickerson at like age 90 was trying to chase prime Michael Vick. And I still have nightmares about that. I was at the championship game against the Giants, the game after that Seahawks game where it was -30 and Favre threw the interception at the end and Tom Coughlin's face was all red. That was not great. Those are some of the more heartbreaking ones, of course. I was at the 49ers game with the block punt a few years ago. So yeah, there's been some not great ones as well, but there's been some pretty epic ones and wouldn't trade those for anything. Evan Williams is absolutely that good. No overhype there whatsoever. In fact, I think there's even more to his game than we've completely discovered as of yet. Like, meaning I think he's going to get better. So he's really good. He's really, really good. He's been nothing but a stud so far. And like I said, I think there's actually a better version of his game still out there as he continues to grow and get more reps. Very, very excited about Evan Williams. Jets being oh yes, there you go. Yeah, it's so weird. I read that Goff is bad outside in weather. Let it rain. That could be. Hey, I'll take anything at this point. For a dome team, come to Lambeau, get a good crowd, get it raining. Hell yeah, sign me up. I don't know, Evan, what that means. So I'll give you the shout out here, but I don't know that we need to go in that direction, my friend. This week is a great opportunity for old Jeff to show what he's got. I'm excited to see the defensive game plan he puts together. Gary and X will be huge factors. Williams solidifies himself. Yeah, this is a huge game for Jeff Hafley, just to go out and show like Ben Johnson, Jeff Hafley, like that's a fun matchup. And I think Jeff Hafley's going to be up to the task, but I'll say this. It doesn't matter how good of a defensive coordinator you are or how good of a play caller you are. If you can't get there with 4, it's going to be a tough day. Like, it's going to be very, very difficult. So they've got to figure out a way to unlock the Devontae Wyatts, the Rashawn Garys, the Preston Smiths, the LVNs, the Enigbares, Kenny Clarks. Those guys have got to be active up front. Has to happen. Absolutely has to happen. Lions dominated after losing Hutchinson is BS. They were supposed to get worse, not better. I demand a recount. Let's give it time. I will. There's no question about this. Like, they might be weathering it right now. Long term and come playoff time, that is going to be a massive, massive loss for them. Like, to a degree that I don't think maybe even Lions fans fully recognize yet. That will be I think a potentially season altering change for them. Like, a legitimately season altering change. So I think they, to me, go from the favorites to win the Super Bowl with Hutchinson to it's a lot more up for grabs after that. I think that's how impactful that it is. So it's definitely a big loss for them. This game feels like such a measuring stick for who's going to be top of the NFC. Self-inflicted penalties will be huge. Must keep them to a minimum and play clean, and we will win for sure. Let's go. That's the formula for Green Bay. Just stay out of your own damn way. If Green Bay stays out of their own damn way, they're going to win almost every single one of their games. That's how good they are. They have all the talent that they need. Matt's a fantastic game planner. Jeff has done a fantastic job of game planning and calling plays so far. You just got to go out and execute and not make those big mistakes. And if Green Bay can get away with this one without making those big catastrophic special teams mistakes and no penalties, no interceptions, and no big coverage breakdowns on defense, you play your brand of football, you're beating Detroit in Green Bay this week. There's no two ways around it. But Green Bay's had a big propensity to shoot themselves in the foot. That's been their biggest Achilles heel. So they've got to do a much better job of just calming down, playing sound football, not making those mistakes, and taking it to Detroit for 4 quarters. They can do that. They can easily win this game. Hopefully the friendly confines of Lambeau will slow down this Detroit offense. Only played outdoors once this year and put up 20 points. Good call, good pull. I am interested to see how they'll do outside of the dome and in some different weather. Hey, if there's anything that can slow them down, by all means, I'm all for it. I will say this, Detroit's a very physical football team too. So that could play into their hands, both on offense and on defense. If you get into one of those games where like running the football is going to be king, Detroit's not going to mind that. And I know Dan Campbell's not going to mind that. And he's going to want to have that mentality of, we'll run it on every play if we have to, and we'll go right through you. So Green Bay's going to have to be up to the task, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Most hated Minnesotan, good to see you, my friend. I did see the super chats. All right, we'll get to those in just 1 second. I'll get to one more, and then we'll get to the super chats. Yes, sir. Everything else has been in a dome. Firmly believe that this helps then offense. Oh, it very much does. No question about it. Sam, thank you for the super chat. Which team do you think the rain favors? Like I said, I think I'll take anything to just change it up for Detroit at this point because they've been so good indoors and with how they've been playing so far. So I'll take it advantage Green Bay. But again, this is a very tough-minded, physical, aggressive football team in Detroit. So I don't think that they're going to shy away from it. And like I said, they're going to bring it to you, try to run right through your face. So I don't think it necessarily goes against Detroit, but I don't think it necessarily goes for them either. The NFL Packers have a player development problem. I don't know that the Packers have a player development problem. In fact, if you were to argue that any team might do player development better than any other team, it might be Green Bay, right? We're win now in the NFL. And when you have a bunch of owners that want to win right now, and that's who's cashing the checks and making the ultimate decisions, you have GMs that immediately have pressure on them, and you have coaches that have even more pressure on them because they are easily interchangeable, whereas a lot of times, sometimes players are not. So you end up in this cycle where GMs and coaches are making the decision in the best interest of themselves to win right now because you have to, because if you don't, you're going to get fired. And it doesn't really pay to develop that next great player if by the time that player is great, you're no longer the coach or the GM. You look at Indianapolis, and we won't go into all of this right now, but if maybe Steichen and the GM there, Ballard, felt like they had carte blanche for the next 10 years and weren't going anywhere, they probably handle this entire situation differently. Maybe even how they played Richardson in the first place, or they're at least probably not in the same scenario right now. But those guys have to look out for themselves. And if they don't win now, they're going to be gone. And even if Richardson ends up great, 3 years from now, they won't be there. So I think that's the biggest problem is we are in this win now cycle with almost every single team, and GMs and coaches don't have any ability to wait things out or have any level of patience because the owners have zero level of patience. And that's what you get. And that's where you're going to end up with guys like Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson completely thrown under the bus in the meantime. In a perfect world, Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young would have been brought up, I think, in a much different way, maybe not thrown in there, maybe given a plan like Green Bay where they've got 2-3 years to sit and develop, because, there's the two extremes of looking at this, right? The first extreme is, well, let them sit and develop and they shouldn't play right away. And they need to, really get all their skills right before they should get on the field. And there's the other mindset of like, they're not going to learn if they don't get on the field. They need the reps. They need the routine. They need all that. Otherwise, they're never going to learn how to play in the NFL. I think from a Green Bay standpoint, we can say very clearly, hey, that one way works pretty darn well, giving them time to develop. You could point to a CJ Stroud on the other side and say, look at what some of these guys are able to do right away. Why would I not get them in the game and start playing? think you have to handle every situation differently. Jordan Love would have done terribly in a CJ Stroud situation. Aaron Rodgers would, I think, even done worse in a CJ Stroud situation. Like neither of those guys were ready to play right away. You know who else wasn't ready to play? Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young. And I think you have to be able to evaluate the quarterback that you have and say, I need to bring them along at a slow pace. I think the biggest thing is getting their fundamentals right, their arm angle and their footwork and their timing and rhythm within the offense. Like that stuff has to be innate by the time that they get out there. Because what happens is if it's not set in stone, if it's not just natural, you get in the game and now the live bullets are flying and these quarterbacks aren't ready to, sort of mentally figure out everything. So now you're getting pressured. And what happens when you get pressured? All of those fundamentals that you're trying to learn just go right out the window and you do what you've been doing since middle school. And so that's why it's so important that you master those skills first and get to know the entire offense and the playbook and get to your footwork down and your, just all the fundamentals of playing the position down so that once you get in there, you know the playbook, you know the checks, you know the calls, you know the verbiage, you know how to get in and out of the huddle, you know how to get everyone lined up, and your arm and your footwork are married together so that you know exactly what you're doing. And then all that raw natural talent comes out and it allows you to display it at a much higher level, very similar to what we saw out of Jordan Love last year. But that stuff takes time. And for every CJ Stroud, there are 20 quarterbacks that completely flame out of the league. So I think I don't have a perfect answer because, I would have loved to have seen Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson get more time to develop, but GMs and coaches don't get that leeway. But I think that the Colts situation is so crazy and stupid. And again, if the intention is to basically start over with Anthony Richardson, right? And say, hey, we just got to get his fundamentals right before we get him back out there. And if that's really the intention, okay, so be it. Like, let's start over. And I'm okay with that. I really am. But if it's like in Indy or Carolina, if your intention is to like, hey, let's get Andy Dalton or Joe Flacco out there because we're better right now, what the hell are you doing? In all sincerity, what the hell are you doing? Neither of you are winning anything this year. You're just not. You're not winning a playoff. You're not making the play. I mean, the Colts, I guess, theoretically could make the playoffs, but like, you're not going on a Super Bowl run with Joe Flacco. Like, just if it's just like, hey, we need to win right now. Why? What are you doing? Like, that's not helping anyone. Like, you would be so much better off. Like, the entire season for the Colts and the entire season for Carolina. And again, if this needs to be with them on the bench, so be it. But your entire year should be based on making Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson successful. If you want to be good franchises, that will get you further than any first-round playoff exit with a Joe Flacco or any extra 2 or 3 wins that you get with Andy Dalton. There's no point to it whatsoever. There's absolutely nothing you gain out of it. The only thing I will readily admit, you do have to be somewhat careful if you are about to lose the entire locker room because you don't make a change. So if the locker room in Indy is about to go nuclear because they think Joe Flacco is giving them a better chance to win and this Richardson kid can't play, then again, you've already set Richardson up for immense failure and you've already done him such a disservice. But if it gets to that point, then you might need to just save the locker room and try to keep it together as much as possible and maybe start fresh next year, whatever the case may be. But if it's to that level, then maybe you need to make the change. Same thing at Carolina. If it's got to that level where you're risking a nuclear locker room if you don't make the change, all right, then maybe you need to. But my point being is they should have never been put in that situation in the first place. And you, again, if you as a franchise, your entire organization should be all hands on deck to making those two successful. Because if you don't, you're so far beyond screwed and have to start over from scratch anyway. These are guys you spent top 5 picks on just last year, by the way. Just last year. We're not talking about 3 or 4 year guys. And Richardson missed the majority of last year. So taking the time, effort, and energy to put into those guys should be your biggest 1A priority. And everyone in the organization needs to be on board with that. That we have to do everything in our power to make Bryce and Anthony successful, or we are screwed. And you got to find a way to put another top 5 pick into someone or spend a crap ton of money on whatever, because you're not going to do it with Joe Flacco. You're certainly not going to do it with Andy Dalton. So it's a crappy situation. I think there is a problem, but there's no solution. There's no answer to it. There just isn't. And it's unfortunate. You all say LVN lacks a pass rush plan. He's got no moves exist, right? Is it coaching, not knowing how to combo, or does he just panic? I'm willing to bet you that the coaches are very much working with him on a plan and how to attack and how to get into the pads and how to use, his legs and his arms together and get to a point on the field where he can win with his leverage. Like, I'm sure they're doing all those things. We don't get to see it at practice, but I'd be willing to bet you that they're working with him on it. I think he's raw. I think he is still from a football standpoint, relatively young in his football career because he played hockey growing up. And I think he's still figuring out how to play the game and the nuances of it. I will say, I think he's done a nice job in run defense. I think he sets the edge well. I think he chases after everything. He's a willing tackler. Like, there's a lot of things that on that side of the ball, he does do well, or on the run defense, he does do well. He's a great effort player. But when it comes to pass rush, I think PFF again has him at like 3 or 4 pressures on the year. It's like a 4% win rate. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. So he's got to figure out something more. I don't know that there's much more that coaching can do. You just got to continue to work on the technique over and over and over and over again until it clicks. And hopefully it can click for him sooner rather than later. But it's not completely hopeless, again, because he is doing some good stuff on the field, especially in run defense, but he's got to find a way to win better on pass rushing. And there's just nothing there. There's no move. There's no plan. There's nothing. So it's just got to get better. Just has to find a way to get better. Thank you guys all again for the super chats. Appreciate it a ton. Which trio at full health would you take? 2014 Williams, Shields, Hayward, or 2021 Stokes, Jair, Douglas? Oh, that is was 2014 Williams, Shields, Hayward? That could be right, but it's not even close. I'll take Williams, Shields, Hayward in 2014. 2021 was 2021 his rookie season, right? Yeah, Eric Stokes is 2021. I don't think they ever played together, right? Because by the time Stokes and Douglas played, or by the time Douglas got into town, Jair was out for the year, right? I don't think those three ever played together in 2021. Now I want to look. All right, 2021 defense. So Jair Alexander, Douglas, and Stokes. So that playoff game in 2021 against the 49ers was the one game in 2021 that they all played together. And Jair, I think, played somewhat sparingly in that game, if memory serves. 2022, before he was traded. Oops, sorry, I just lost my thing there. Okay, so they played 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so they played. Oh no, there we go. So they played 9 games together in 2022 before then Stokes went out with the injury. So they played 9 games. So they played 10 games total together. So we actually didn't get to see that combo all that much. But I'll take Hayward, Williams, and Shields very, very easily. Nick, if the AI says they will win, they will win. All right. Sign me up. I'm all for it. Dumb question, but could we get Chase Young over LVN? I don't think they make a move for Chase Young. I'm not personally a big Chase Young guy, quite honestly, but I don't think they go in that direction. I think they could add somebody to the pass rush group, but I don't think it's going to be any big time splash. I've said the name a million times now, but Agbo Okoronkwo would be somebody that I think could make some sense, just as a different type of edge rusher. He's got like 1.6 million on his contract this year, 2.2 million on his contract next year. You're just barely paying him anything whatsoever. There's an option bonus next year, so it might be a little bit more than that. But either way, it's not a brutal contract for Okoronkwo. Like, that's somebody that you could look at. I think just maybe like an incremental upgrade, maybe over a Brenton Cox or an Aaron Mosby, just to add somebody else to the mix. I could see them doing something like that, but I don't fully see like a big time splash player there. What's your thoughts on a trade of Jonathan Jones from the Patriots? I would be fine with it. I don't see necessarily Green Bay doing it. I'd have to look at like contract and everything. Jonathan Jones, corner, has this year left on his deal. He's got, that would come off. So you'd probably pay him about like $4.5 million for the remainder of this year, somewhere in that range. It's fine. It's workable. How has he played per PFF at least? Jonathan Jones, he's got a 69 grade from PFF. Pretty good coverage grades as of late, 73.6 coverage grade. All right. I can handle that. 14 of 19, 73.7% completion percentage, 218 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, 1 pass breakup. He's given up a passer rating of 128.8 so far. That doesn't seem so great, but only 19 targets on the year. So you're talking about what, divided by 7-8 games, so 2 to 3 targets per game, somewhere in there. So I don't know. I'd be okay with it. I don't know that they would go in that direction, but I wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't hate it at all. All right. To the draft chats. Good luck finding a room. Everything is booked up in the 100-mile radius. Yeah, it's really crazy. So I think, you're going to Airbnb something really expensive, or you have to figure something else out. But I'm sure the draft is going to be very difficult. Like I said, I'm probably just going to be in my office here the majority of the time, because I don't think I'm going to, have the craziness of going down there and not be able to broadcast live and things like that. So we'll try to figure something out, maybe do something Wednesday night and Saturday night. But I think during the draft, I probably am just going to be right here in Sabisky. Thinking D. Wyatt could have a big game. I hope so. I think, again, Glasgow is the one that you want to go after, and we could definitely see Wyatt matched up with Glasgow in this one. Munchies, good to see you. Howdy to you as well. Goal this year's NFC Championship game, Super Bowl next year. Lions are skull crushers now. Travis, my goal is Super Bowl. No question about it. Goal is the Super Bowl every year when you've got a team like this. I don't think that the 2010 team was their most, I think 2011 was probably a more talented team than 2010. They didn't win it in 2011. They won it in 2010. I think 97 was as good, if not better, of a roster than 96 was. They didn't win it in 97. They won it in 96. So, we've seen a lot of great Green Bay Packers teams that fell short. And we've seen some teams, obviously 2010 and 96 were both phenomenal teams, right? But maybe not the team, especially in 2010, not maybe quite the team that you were expecting to make the run that quick. I don't care when it happens. I quite frankly, I want to see that Goody, LaFleur, Love championship trophy raised, just like we saw Wolf and Favre and White, just like we saw Woodson and Rodgers and McCarthy and Thompson, and obviously Holmgren in the first one. Like, I want the Goody, LaFleur, Love, and I guess McKinney as I want to see those guys on the podium, whether it's this year, next year, the following year. If they only get one of them, that's fine. Obviously, I would love more than that, but whenever it is, I will take it. And I'm hoping that it's this year. And that's my goal for this team. And anything else is going to be a bit of a bummer, because we know how it goes, right? Last year, were they ever expected to be in that NFC Championship game or Super Bowl conversation? No. Did it absolutely sting to death when San Francisco beat them at the end last year? Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Because again, in the NFL, you just get you get hot at the right time. And that's all you're looking to do. Because, anytime you have a 1-game playoff, whether it's in the NFL or college basketball, you can have upsets. It's not always the best indicator of who is the best team that year. Nobody will ever convince me that the Giants team that beat the undefeated Patriots was the best team of that season. The Patriots were very clearly the best team of that season. Like, they were undefeated in the regular season. They were a dominant team. They win that game against the Giants, I think 85 times out of 100, maybe even more than that. Giants won that game. Was that like the greatest Giants team we've ever seen? Hell no. And was that a team that you would have expected to maybe even win that Super Bowl? Hell no. Is that a team that was better than that Patriots team? Hell no. But guess what? Nobody cares about anything else. They won that Super Bowl. They get that credit. In that, some of those plays, the David Tyree catch on the top of his helmet, those will live forever. So none of that stuff matters. It doesn't matter what the timeline is for Green Bay. I've said for like 3 years now, look at 2025. That's going to be the year that I think they are going to have the best chance. But guess what? They're there right now. They can win it right now. And whether 2025, 2026 is a better team, it doesn't matter. 2024 might be the year that they actually win it and just put it together at the right time. So that's what I'm rooting for, and nobody can say otherwise. That's my goal for the team. All right. Hit that like, Green Ranger. I appreciate that. Only 18 likes. Also, somebody had disliked before it even started. Who's the douche rocket that disliked the Pack-A-Day Live before we even started? Hit those likes just to quiet the douche rocket down. That's your goal. Appreciate you guys, though. Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate you being here. Vex has got to cheer up. Vex is all good. All hail the mighty AI. Let's see. B Brown, you're more than welcome anytime, my friend. No worries being late. This isn't, we're not on meeting time. I'm not going to scold anyone. We'll be at the Niners game. Need that W. That will be a fun one. Hopefully they get that win. By the way, congrats to Andy on the radio show. Is there an online stream of the show available to out-of-towners? Yes. thefanmilwaukee.com. You can also find it on the Odyssey app afterwards as well. So, yep, just look Pack a Day Radio Show on Odyssey or, again, thefanmilwaukee.com. Wyatt has shown promise as a developmental guy. I totally agree. What's your opinion on Michael Lombardi's opinions or works? I think I have a Michael Lombardi book here somewhere. I don't know if I've ever read it. I'd have to look. I thought I had one. I don't know. I honestly don't know Michael Lombardi all that well. I'd have to go back and look at some of the stuff that he's done. Is that the Patriots former guy, right? He worked with the Patriots. Am I thinking of the right guy? Yeah. New England Patriots. Oh, he was an assistant to the coaching staff. I thought he was more of a front office dude. Browns general manager and vice president in 2013. Why did I think he had a bigger role with New England than just assistant to the coaching staff? I don't know. I guess I don't really know all that well. 2014 through 2016, Lombardi worked under Belichick of the Patriots as an assistant to the coaching staff. Speaking about Lombardi's time in New England, Belichick said, "Mike's one of the smartest people I've worked with. He was a huge asset to me during the 2 years he was here. He studies football and knows it very well." Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at some of his works a little bit more, have a better say on that. Packers are extremely exemplary when it comes to player development. I would agree. Been watching the channel since August, and I wish I could have found it sooner. Keep up the great content, Andy. Adam, I appreciate that. Make sure to tell your friends about it as well, so hopefully they can find it a little bit sooner. But I know a lot of you are ambassadors for the channel and speak very highly of it, so that goes a very long way, and I really appreciate it, and I'm glad you found it, Aiden. Did I say Adam before? Sorry if I did. Aden. I think we have a better chance at talking Aaron Donald out of retirement and winning 4 Super Bowls in a row before getting Garrett Crosby or anything decent for LVN. Yeah, it wouldn't be a straight up if they did anything like that. It would be LVN plus picks if they did something like that. You're not getting a high-end premium player just for LVN at this point. LVN can't rush the passer. At least Young can't produce on third downs opposite of Gary. I'd have to go back and look what that's entirely in regards to, but LVN is definitely having some struggles rushing the passer right now. Listen to your post-game podcast. It seems UW Oshkosh has some nice alumni. However, my UW lacrosse is the alma mater to the Brian Gutekunst. Yeah, that's definitely a good one for them. No question about it. Do you expect a run-heavy game plan this weekend? I'm in nursing school, and my free time always consists of Pack a Day. Thank you for all you do, Andy Miranda. I really appreciate that a ton. And good luck in nursing school. We can always, obviously use more in the medical profession because that is always one that is much needed. So kudos to you for that. I think Matt's going to run the game plan that he think ultimately works best against Detroit. I'm sure if it's Malik or if it's a banged up Jordan, they're going to try to run the ball as much as they possibly can. So I'm sure that's going to ultimately be job 1A, but I don't think they're going to just run their head against the wall either. If they're not having success running the football, I think they'll try to find options in the passing game that they can attack. And I do think Detroit's corners, specifically Terry Arnold and maybe some of the play action in the middle of the field against their linebackers, can really work in this one. But obviously you'd still love to set up the running game first to set up that play action a little bit better. So I do think we can expect Green Bay to try to consistently run the football. Whether they can and stay with it, I think is going to be a different part of the story in the equation. But I would expect that their hope is that they can have a more run-heavy game plan in this one. All right. Don't know what those are in regards to. I know Malik isn't the answer here, but he is quite a backup. He's not the answer in Green Bay long-term, but if somebody wanted to take a chance on him as a starter again, I don't think that would be the craziest thing in the world at all based on what we've seen so far. Now, I do think the game plans have been very Malik Willis centric and helpful and put him in positions to succeed. I think he's been unbelievably efficient. I don't know how he does if you give him the full breadth of the offense and he's got to go out and throw 30, 40 times a game. That I would have maybe a little bit more concern on, but I like what I've seen and I'm very excited that he's the backup in Green Bay now and should be all of next year as well. Tyree, you think the Lions are overrated? Coach Gamble's too much. Best defender is ours, and Green Bay is on pumpkin watch. Go Pack, go. Oh, best defender is out. I think that, listen, I definitely don't think they're overrated. I think they're a phenomenal football team. They're a phenomenal football team, extremely well coached. Their play call design is awesome on offense and on defense. Ben Johnson's going to be a head coach anytime he wants to be. Aaron Glenn will be in the conversation to be a head coach at some point. So this is a very well-coached team with a very well-designed offense and defense. They've got a ton of talent, but I do think the Hutchinson injury is really, really impactful. I think there are some depth concerns. Remember, Kaminsky's out on defense, as is Marcus Davenport. So it's not just, Hutchinson that they're missing. There's ways that you can attack this team. And listen, this is a really great team last year too on Thanksgiving when Green Bay played them. Green Bay just went in and kicked their ass. So they can do it again. They very much can. I think Green Bay should be right there with them. Goal is always the Super Bowl. We are in lockstep there. 3 straight, as is Green Bay's birthright, 24, 25, and 26. I'm assuming you mean Super Bowls. Hey, sign me up. Lions are not overrated, but every team has weaknesses. Vex, I almost said the exact same thing, my friend. You had it before me, to be fair. Yeah, so for me, I don't think you're looking at the big picture. You can trade some stuff for Young, and you're not getting much. An upgrade from LVN slightly. Yeah, I'm not a big Chase Young guy, but again, LVN, I don't think you would trade LVN straight up for Chase Young. I think you would hold on to LVN. And if you wanted to trade for Chase Young, I think you would do it with some future draft assets, if anything. But I just don't see Green Bay going in that direction. And I would agree with that assessment. I think Detroit's the best team in football right now. I'm not necessarily saying that means that they're going to be the best team in football come end of the year, but I definitely think that they are playing that way right now. And if you can beat them, you can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the league. Totally agree with that. And also, I will say this. If you have wins against Houston and Detroit at this point in the year, I think those are 2 pretty quality wins at this point in the season for Green Bay. Let's get back to some super chats here. David McCluskey gifted 5 Pack-A-Day podcast memberships. David, that is awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. And congratulations to the 5 who received those. Connor, sorry, joining late. Any thoughts on trade deadline for D-line help? I know we just signed Davis, but could still use more. Maybe cornerback help instead. I do kind of like corner a little bit more. I've been through this like 1,000 times. I just don't know what Goody's going to give up a bunch of draft assets for, because I think he's going to feel pretty comfortable in pretty much every room on this team. I think corner is the one that still makes the most sense to me. And if you can add a pass rusher, I don't care where it's from. I don't care if it's defensive tackle or defensive end. If you can add a pass rusher somehow, I would be for that as well. I just don't think Goody's going to go and be ultra aggressive with it, which means that some other team would probably outbid them for any player that they'd maybe be interested in. I think it would be some sort of smaller trade to get another depth piece at corner or offensive line or defensive line or something like that. Somebody that could help long-term if there's injuries. But I think it's something on the smaller end than any sort of big splash. And I still feel that way. And if I'm wrong, awesome. I'll be happy if Goody makes a big time splash addition, anything you can do to make the team better. But I think Goody is of the mind, and I think he's right, that if they need to add something throughout the season, he and his front office can find something. They've done it. Like, they find guys off of practice squads that can come in and help. They find Chris Brooks out of nowhere who can come in and be a solid running back for them. They find Rasul Douglas out of nowhere mid-season and bring him in. He becomes awesome at corner. Like, I think they honestly feel like, yeah, if something happens, like, we'll go find somebody. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And for the most part, they've kind of been right. So I don't know that they need to give up like a top 100 pick to make some crazy move, especially with the talent and depth that this team already has. But if you can add a pass rusher or another potential cover corner, sign me up. I'll say it one more time. The name that really intrigues me, and we don't know if he's going to be available. The contract is actually super unique. And I can't, if I'm being honest, I can't fully break it down to see exactly what Green Bay would be responsible for. I have to look at the option bonuses that are on there a little bit closer to see exactly how that would play out. But Jalen Ramsey would be one that would be very intriguing to me. Just because I think him being able to play outside and in the slot with Nixon playing outside in the slot, it allows you to mix and match a lot more. And I think a secondary of Evan Williams and McKinney at safety with Jair Ramsey and Nixon, or Jair Ramsey and Bullard, at the corner spots, sign me up. That sounds really, really fun. So like, that's one that I think would be intriguing if you could pull something like that off. But again, I just don't see Green Bay making that splash move. And also history tells us they probably will not make a splash type of move. If Malik plays this week and wins, is there a chance he gets signed long-term mid-season, even if it's to trade him? Yeah, I talked about this the other day. I think this may have been an autograph that I talked about this, but so here's the challenge, right? If you're Malik Willis or Malik Willis's agent, there's really no benefit to doing any sort of deal. Like, you want him to be a starter eventually, right? You want him to have that opportunity to go and sign a deal somewhere where he could potentially be a starter. And so he's under contract in 2024 and in 2025. I think he probably plays out that contract in Green Bay. hopes to have a huge preseason next year, and any opportunities he gets in the season that he goes and tears it up, and hope that some team in 2026 either A, gives him a contract to be a starter, or he goes somewhere where maybe they're in need of a stopgap starter until a rookie is ready, or they're just in a place that's a quarterback purgatory and they don't really have anyone. And maybe they're going to give the opportunity to somebody else first. But as soon as that player struggles, maybe he gets the opportunity, maybe somewhere like this year, like the Raiders, where it's O'Connell and Minshew or something like that. You just go somewhere where there's an opportunity where at least you could be the starter. So I think that's what he's going to look for. Now, if I'm Green Bay, if I'm the Packers, I'm going to say, listen, Malik Willis, and I have to look this up just to make sure I've got the numbers right here. Give me 1 second. Bear with me. My computer would like to cooperate. So Malik Willis next year. So he's under contract next year at $1.4 million, a 1 year, $1.4 million deal next year. If I'm the Packers, I would like to go to Willis and say, hey, you don't know what the future is going to bring. You don't know if the Cinderella slipper for Malik Willis is going to fall off at any moment. He could go out and have a really bad preseason next year. He might not get any more time on the field this year, next year. And in 2026, when he's a free agent, you might get like a 1 year, $3 million deal at best in free agency. How about this? How about we tear up that contract that he's on in 2025? How about we tear that up and we give you a brand new 3 year, $15 million deal with 12 million, 10 million, 12 million guaranteed? How does that sound? And if you're Malik Willis, you're like, all right, I get an additional $4 million next year. And then I get 2 years, 10 million after that, 5 million a year to be a backup quarterback. I'm locking in basically 15 million right now. Whereas right now, the only thing I'm guaranteed is that 1 million next year. Am I going to turn down 14 million? And for Green Bay, you lock up a really great backup quarterback for the next 3 years that clearly works very well in Matt LaFleur's system. That's probably what I'm offering. If I'm Green Bay, I do that deal. I do it pretty easily. If I'm Malik Willis and his agent, I at least have to consider it. Because again, like he gets the 1 million next year. Green Bay hold his rights. He's not going to be able to hold out or anything like that. Green Bay is going to say, you go hold out. You're fine. They're not going to care. So that he doesn't have that leverage. And he's, he can't exactly demand a trade. So he's going to be in Green Bay next year on a 1 year, $1.4 million deal. And there's no guarantee that he gets that opportunity to showcase himself there, where some team's willing to give him a decent deal in 2026. So I think if you're the agent, you have to at least consider it. And if, like I said, if I'm Green Bay, I do that deal. Do I think it gets done? No. Do I think he ends up a free agent in 2026? Yes. Do I think he's the backup all next year in Green Bay? Yes. But we'll see. It's an interesting conversation one way or the other. And if I'm Goody, yeah, I'm gonna offer that deal. All right. Where do we leave off? All right. Oh, we're looking at Young still. Oh, we need no more Chase Young stuff. We talked about that. I'm already confident Green Bay can beat any team just so long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot. Well said. The only team a healthy Packers team should fear is the Chiefs. Disagree. I think they can be better than the Chiefs. I really do. Chiefs have been on like the margins. And if you look at it analytically, they have not been your typical like undefeated juggernaut. They just haven't. And that's why KC's like looking for players that they can add to their roster. There's weaknesses in KC. Really are. I think both teams healthy, both teams peaking at the right time, both teams play their best brand of football. I think Green Bay wins. I really, really do. AI will be pushed big time this week. If they win, you bet. You absolutely bet. If the AI goes 8-0 or 9-0 after this week with a win against Detroit, hell yeah. Thank you for this, Andy. Also, when you're rocking the t-shirt I got you, need to see it before it gets too cold. Love the new radio show. 2-man congrats. I've worn it multiple times. I just haven't had it on camera yet. So we'll definitely do that. Maybe for our bonus Q&A tomorrow or a members Q&A tomorrow, we can do something like that, or we'll figure something out, but we'll wear it sooner rather than later. Most of our edge players are basically just run defenders. Should they trade for a pass rusher specialist and possibly get rid of Preston Smith? Baron Browning would step in and easily be the best pure winner. I would love Baron Browning. That would be a ton of fun. I don't think Denver probably has a ton of interest. Like they're basically a playoff team right now based on the AFC. So I don't think they do that, but I would love another pass rusher. No two ways around it. Should we move Walker off left tackle? No, he's a left tackle. He's still the best left tackle they have, in my opinion. Just needs to play a little bit better. And I think he will. I was thinking of Belichick's son. No, I was not thinking of Belichick's son. I very much know who Steve Belichick is. I was not thinking of him when we were talking about Michael Lombardi. I think the Cowboys game going so perfectly last year had made us get overly frustrated at times with the. Is there another piece to this, Alex? I think the Cowboys game going so perfectly last year had made us overly frustrated at times with the interceptions this year. Maybe I could see that. What is up with Walker at left tackle? Just not maybe having the same season as he did at the end of last year. I think he just needs to clean up his technique work a little bit, make sure he's anchoring a little bit better. His footwork has been a little bit all over the place. His hand placement's been a little bit all over the place. So just needs to play a bit more consistent. And I think he can. He showed it at the end of last year. Just needs to settle in, slow the game down a little bit. But I really do believe he get there. I have a lot of faith in Rasheed Walker, but it's not been the start to the season that I think he or I or the Packers were hoping for. Is it illegal to sleep in your car in Green Bay? I really want to go there for the draft. Luke, I have no idea the answer to that question. I've never been in a situation where I've had to sleep in my car in Green Bay. So I don't know. My brother visiting from Nebraska, he's a Panther fan, bragged about how his Panther podcast he follows has new episodes twice a week. Needless to say, I told him, what's up, Pack a Day, loving football. I absolutely love that. That's amazing. I missed most of this, but what do you think about the idea that this is a win if you play Malik? One, because of Love healing, right? But also because of how deep Matt LaFleur goes in his bag with Malik. No, I don't think it's necessarily a win-win. I think your best scenario is that Love plays and is is playing at a high level. I think that's the win there. But there's always different things that can happen. And if there's a re-injury for Love or you're risking aggravating it or whatever the case, or that he just can't run the offense the right way, then yeah, maybe Malik plays and maybe they get a win with Malik and that'd be awesome. But I think the best case scenario is that Love plays and plays well in this one. Probably a clean, almost turnover-free, heavy run game, and I kind of think that is the ticket. And if we lose, who cares? Love heals. Don't show all the cards. Yeah, I think this is too important of a game. I think this is one of your huge divisional games on the year. You're now giving Detroit an extra win and you an extra loss, and you're going 0-2 in the division, which could really be detrimental when it comes to tiebreakers at the end of the year. And you lost 2 of your divisional home games already. I think this is a big game. I think you want to come away with a win in this one. David, I appreciate your support. I think Detroit is the best team in the league. Maybe before Hutchinson's injury might mean the whole league is overrated. So I don't know. I think Detroit's just a good team, and that's okay. They deserve the praise that they're getting, but doesn't mean Green Bay can't go and punch them in the mouth and come away with the win. Also, would you give up a second-round pick for J.C. Horn today? I'd have to go back and watch a bunch of J.C. Horn tape. I liked J.C. Horn coming out. I didn't love him coming out. I don't think he totally fits maybe in Green Bay, but I'd have to go and look at that before I'd say what I'm willing to trade for him. But I would be intrigued by adding somebody like that. I'll put it that way. All right. Looks like Killer Kenny got a membership, which is awesome. My guess would be no. I think they likely don't make a move, but I guarantee you, I'll say this. I think Goody would love to make and see more trades in the NFL. I think he's one of those guys that wants the league to pick up the amount of trades that are happening. And we've seen a lot of trades so far. So it seems like teams are opening up to the idea of trading players. So I'm sure he's going to be involved in a lot of conversations. I just think it's tough unless there's an injury this week that they really need a player, like Minnesota needed a tackle because of the Darisaw injury. I think unless you get something like that, it's just more likely that they kind of go with the guys that they have and continue to improve the roster that they have right now. I think they have a lot of faith in the players on this team, and I think they're right to have that faith. But if Goody can make an upgrade, even if it's a small one, I think he will, and I think he'll definitely be active in conversations come deadline time. But gun to my head right now, I would say I think it's a little more likely that there is no trade than that there is a trade. Green Bay head coach needs to stop constantly throwing the ball at the goal line. That's how Jordan Love keeps throwing interceptions. They need to run the ball in the red zone more. It starts with the offensive line. The offensive line's not a move people offensive line. That's not their skill set. If you want to know where things started to go downhill from a red zone offense standpoint, it's when you lose David Bakhtiari and Corey Linsley and those sort of guys up front that actually are technicians at the position and can move some people. This is a good offensive line, especially from a pass pro standpoint. They don't get a ton of movement up front. And so, it's all great to say yeah, you got to run the football. All right, well, if you keep getting stuffed in the red zone and you can't run the ball, it doesn't make sense to just keep doing it over and over and over and over again. Also, you have to call the play that works. The play to Tucker Kraft last week was freaking awesome. It was an unbelievable play. I also don't know, I don't feel like Jordan's thrown a ton of red zone interceptions in his career. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with that aspect of it, but I would love if Green Bay could run the ball more in the red zone, but it's a tough place to run and you better have some people movers if you want to do it, especially when it comes to the goal line. How can the Pack make the Super Bowl this year? Your thoughts? just keep getting better, keep growing, keep consistently pushing the envelope. I think what really gives me a lot of hope is that this team is already 6-2 and playing some good football, and they're not even playing good football. So that might be contradictory, but they're like not even close to hitting their peak. Like Jordan in this offense, this passing offense, I would say is at like 50% of its, maybe 60% of its capabilities, in large part due to some of the injuries with Jordan and some of the turnovers as well. Like we're not even close to where we saw this offense at the end of last year. If all of a sudden they start picking up like they did at the end of last year, this offense is going to be putting up 30-point games every single week. And this defense, I think we've already seen that they're much improved and they play a much more aesthetically pleasing brand of football. If this defensive front, which we have seen do better in the past, starts playing better and getting pressure, that's a huge opportunity too. So I think the fact that I think you have all the right pieces in all the right places. I think you've got the right scheme on defense. I think you've got a great offensive minded head coach. I think you have the players that you need. Just think the offense needs to settle in and play a little bit more consistently. And I think on the defensive side, you got to figure out a way to rush the passer with 4. Those are the 2 things holding you back. Cut down on the turnovers and the mistakes, play your efficient brand of football on offense. That starts with Jordan, and then get to the quarterback with 4 guys up front. You do that, they're very arguably the best team in football. I really believe that. Who's the most important person to start other than Jordan Love this Sunday? Are you talking like just in the game? Like who's the most important person to start? I don't know if you mean from like an injury standpoint. I think Jair is going to be super important with the Amon-Ra St. Brown matchup. But I mean, the entire offensive line is really important. Zach Tom's massively important. Josh Jacobs is going to be really important in this one. Xavier McKinney's massively important. Evan Williams is important. So there's a lot of guys that are important. You just want as many guys out there as healthy as possible and playing their best football. Should we trade Willis to the Jets for Rodgers? It's good to have a veteran as a backup. Sarcasm emoji. We won't get into that. GM Andy, brilliant as always. Matt, I appreciate that. No Salah this week. Sorry, I didn't realize more super chats came in. Sorry about that, Ralph. No Salah this week. I don't know if he was I don't know if he's going to be at practice, but my assumption is he's still hopefully helping the team in some capacity. What would Nick, if Nick Wright disagrees with me, I think more often than not, I feel like I'm in the right frame of mind. I don't mind that at all. But I don't know what he's disagreeing with me on. Remember Thanksgiving? Let's just do that again. Yes, very much so. Will Love get a turkey after we beat the Dolphins on Thanksgiving? Let's hope so. No more getting Jordan with no turkey. He earns it. He deserves it. Get him the turkey this year. Let's see. Would you say the Lions are the biggest challenge remaining for the Packers this year then? If not, then them who? Yeah, I would say that. But I think Minnesota on the road is going to be a brutal game. I think Chicago is going to give Green Bay everything because that's their big game every year, of course. I think the San Francisco game will be really tough. I guarantee you Christian McCaffrey's probably back by then. Seattle on the road in Seattle is always going to be a difficult game. So yeah, at Detroit, at Seattle, at Minnesota, 49ers at home, Detroit at home. It's not an easy schedule the rest of the way. Those are all going to be some pretty tough games. Ken Clips became a brand new member. Ken, appreciate that. Thanks for signing up. Claude, I've never seen you without a hat on. I'm going to do a jump scare one of these times and just show up without a hat on. There are episodes out there. There's probably, I want to say 5 or 6 episodes in the history of the Pack-A-Day YouTube channel that have hatless Andy. They're very rare, but there are a few out there. I'll do one soon. I'll do a hatless Andy episode soon. Maybe a live, maybe a members Q&A, maybe just an episode, but I'll come on one day and I won't have a hat on and you'll be like, the hell? And just be like, oh my God, who am I listening to or who am I watching? But I'll do it sometime coming up. Seattle, unless you're Buffalo, apparently. Yeah, that was a huge game for Buffalo. Over under on the 1:30 bedtime tonight. 1:30, I will say under. My guess is I'm somewhere between 1 and 1:15 tonight, but it's probably between like 1:10 and like 1:30. So, but I'll say slightly under. I don't think I'm going to be over 1:30 tonight. I would be surprised if it's past 1:30, but I think right in that 1:15, 1:30 range tonight. So the hairline's definitely in like the 5 head range, so we've got like a solid 5 head going here, but I will say, and I'm not going to do it now because my hair is all sweaty and everything from just having a hat on for the last however many hours. But I will say, like, the reason I wear a hat is not hairline related. It's not great. I'm not going to lie, but it's not hairline related. I'm not bald. I don't have like a big bald spot here or anything like that. So you can go, check it out. There's, like I said, there's like 5 episodes out there with no hat on. So you can find them. The reason I wear a hat, so this is the true story. The reason I wear a hat is because I've been a hat guy since I've been like 7 years old. Like if I could wear a hat like every day of my life, I'd probably wear a hat every day of my life. And these things are massively comfortable. I feel like they're just an extension of me. And my big thing in everything, why you see me usually with like a hooded sweatshirt, right, and a hat on, is I'm a huge believer in the more comfortable, for me at least, I can't speak to everyone, but the more comfortable I am, the more confident I am. And I love just feeling comfortable and confident and easygoing and everything. And I feel most comfortable. I got like a hoodie and a hat or just something light and easygoing and that I feel comfortable in. And if I feel comfortable, I feel confident, feel like I talk better. I feel like just everything comes more naturally to me. So I am all about the world of comfort. And that's why you see me in the hat. It actually has nothing to do with hairline or male pattern baldness or anything like that whatsoever. I don't like my hair. That is definitely a small piece of it as well. But it's not anything to do with that in general. It is 1,000,000% to do with comfort. Tyree Travels. No, there's a better chance of me playing linebacker or edge rusher for the Packers this year than Zadarius Smith playing edge rusher for the Packers this year. Let's see. YouTube host is hatless. Repeat hatless. Is that like the warning sign? This is awesome. Laughing out loud. Thanks for all your work once again, Andy. Derek, you're more than welcome. My mullet is getting long, scaring the elderly at the gym length. Hey, that's awesome. Keep it up. We're not going there, Ben. I don't think he'd be productive for us. He's good at the beginning in a place, as Andy pointed out, then slows down. Yeah, it's not going to happen. There was a falling out between Green Bay and Zadarius. There's 0% chance that happens. God wants you to wear a hat. All right, if you say so, Weed. Andy, what is your favorite time slot for watching the game every week? Not that it matters, just curious. I've seen people have strong opinions one way or the other. This is a great question. We'll end with this one today, unless we get any more super chats in. But it's different if I'm watching it or if I have to do all the stuff that surrounds it because of my day or my job, right? Night games are brutal. Night games are absolutely brutal because, so let's say game gets done at like 11 and then I usually will do like, I'll try to get to so I might do like a small post game after it. Then I do the rewatch on not on the all 22, but a rewatch on the condensed version. So that's like another 40 minutes. And then, so we're probably looking at, I don't know, like midnight. And then I'm putting the show notes together. So like show notes is then like 12:31. And then by the time I start recording, it might be like 1:30. And then I start recording at 1:30, record until like 2:30. And then I edit until like 3:15. Like there've been a lot of times where after games, like I get to bed at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And then of course, like now I haven't even had this yet, but then I've got the radio show the next day that I've got to prep for and things like that too. So it will be crazy and chaotic. I didn't realize this. And like, I didn't really look at it closely, but I didn't realize that there's 4 straight night games in a row. Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football. So the Dolphins, Lions, Seahawks, Saints, back to back night games, which is going to be absolutely brutal. As a fan, I always kind of really enjoy like either Thursday night football or Monday night football, just because like if it's Thursday night football, then you get the game done with. I can get all of my stuff done. I do all like my grades on Friday and Saturday and kind of get everything caught up there. And then by the time Sunday rolls around, I can just enjoy a full day of football and watch it as a fan, which is kind of fun. So I do enjoy that a little bit. Same thing with Monday, right? You can enjoy Thursday, Sunday, everything football, and then Monday the game comes and then you break everything down during the course of the week. So I don't mind that either. But I would say actually from a standpoint now of like covering it, like a noon road game is very, very beautiful because I can do pregame, I can do postgame. As soon as postgame's done, I can do the rewatch. I can still even start watching some other stuff and getting the show ready before we do the postgame show. Then after the postgame show, I can start doing all 22 right away, which is usually out by that time. Like this week, I had the offense almost entirely graded by Sunday night. So that is the ideal right now. A noon road game is about the most ideal situation. But at the end of the day, the probably most honest, brutal answer is I don't really care. love every single second of it, no matter what. There's always going to be some sort of logistics around it, no matter what, that I've got to sort of figure out. And I get to cover the Packers 365 days a year. So I'm not complaining in any way. All right. I'll answer a couple more, just speed round here. As long as I have a Green Bay football, I take it. Love it. Thanks for the chat. Tyree, you are more than welcome. I'm old. 4:00 games are best for me. Great buzz. Eat dinner, go to bed. I love it. Jay Western. Prediction for Sunday we'll get to later in the week. We just picked up Jamin Davis. He was a first-round pick. How quickly can he learn our defense? I think they'll get a little bit of time. I don't think they need him anytime soon. They can't even get Tyron Hopper on the field right now, right? So unless there's an injury, they don't really need him to get out there anytime soon. I think you bring him in, see what he's got. And if you need him at some point this year as a depth piece, awesome. But I wouldn't put too much into it yet until he shows that he can be something on this team. And for right now, you're just happy that you get to take a flyer on him. And that's a cool situation and scenario. I make a motion for Friday's happy hour to be at 8 on Friday. Is there something going on earlier than that? Or is there something going on 8 on Friday? I'd have to think about it, but it's going to be 4 on Friday. I've got a Halloween party actually on Friday night this week. So I will not be available at 8 on Friday this week. The best is late afternoon red zone for the early games. I really like that as well. Andy Herman is a sicko for the Packers. We're well past that. Appreciate the chat and the laughs. Have a great night. You're more than welcome, Matt. Andy, I watch you every day. Marbly, thank you so much. You guys are the absolute best. Noon games are hard because I miss a ton of it. 2 weeks from now, I'll only miss first quarter or less. I can understand that entirely. Night games were great as a kid. Got to stay up past my bedtime now that I'm in my 30s. Give me a noon game. Hey, I'm up till 1:15, so that's definitely not a piece of the equation for me one way or the other than, again, it pushes everything else back. Marquette fan too. Yeah, I love all 4 Wisconsin basketball teams. So I'm one of the rare ones. I think just growing up in Green Bay and not having a Madison/Milwaukee affiliation. Obviously, GB has had its seasons, right? But I love GB, Milwaukee, UW Milwaukee, Marquette, and the Badgers. And I have had years where like some of the Bruce Pearl, obviously before the allegations and stuff, some of the Bruce Pearl UW Milwaukee teams were some of my favorite basketball teams that I've ever watched in the state. The Devin Harris Badger teams were the favorite teams I think I've ever had. Obviously, their run to the championship game with Decker and all those guys as well was up there. Dwayne Wade in the Marquette run in the Final Four. Obviously, the Jarrell McNeil, Dominique James years, and the Wes Matthews and all those guys, like those were phenomenal. And then GB, obviously, you've had the Nordgaard years. Tony Bennett was a little bit before my time as a fan, but obviously that was really cool. And Dick Bennett and beating the Jason Kidd-led Cal teams. And there's been like a Kiefer Sykes run here and there, things like that. And obviously the women's UWGB team has been a team I followed a lot, you know, and just growing up in Green Bay as well. So all 5 of those teams really I cheer for and try to stay close to as much as I can through the course of the year. Connor, thank you. I appreciate you. How do GM contracts work? How long do we still have good for? Green Bay does not announce their head coach or GM contracts. So there's no contract tracker for GM or coach contracts. So I don't have the details on how long those are for and no particulars of it. Actually, the night game means the wife and kid are asleep, so daddy gets to enjoy some tasty beverages, if you know what I mean, laughing out loud. Matt, that's a perfect way to end it. Thank you all for being here. I'll be back tomorrow. Well, yes, for the members-only Q&A at 4, and then happy hour Friday at 4 p.m. Central Time as well. I'll see you guys all really soon. Thanks for the awesome chat. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.